In the year 2032, situated within the eastern United States, Flynn undertakes a visit to her brother Burton, who resides in a trailer adjacent to their home. Engrossed in a virtual reality (VR) game, Burton elucidates his impending participation in a significant competition slated for the evening, promising substantial earnings to procure their mother's essential medication. Promptly, he entrusts Flynn with his VR headset, tasking her to secure victory on his behalf. Transitioning into the game, Flynn assumes control of her brother's avatar and swiftly devises a superior strategy for the party, culminating in their triumph within mere moments. Subsequently, while inspecting a fallen opponent, Flynn stumbles upon a pivotal map coveted by the party. Post-game, she proceeds to her occupation at the 3D print shop. In a subsequent encounter at their residence, Burton unveils a parcel delivered by his acquaintances, containing an innovative headset courtesy of a Colombian enterprise named Milagros Coldiron. Despite its gratuitous nature, Flynn must validate receipt by scanning her iris, akin to a signature. Later, Burton discloses his selection as a beta tester for the aforementioned headset, attributed to his purported attainment of level 100 in a prior game accomplished covertly by Flynn. Given the lucrative compensation, Flynn consents to participate. Donning the headset, she finds herself embodied within Burton's avatar astride a motorcycle. Astonished by the immersive experience, Flynn's awe is interrupted by a disembodied voice, cautioning her of forthcoming sensations, including pain, and mandating compliance with its directives. Guided by the voice, Flynn navigates to Buckingham Palace, where upon dismounting the motorcycle, it vanishes. Uttering the prescribed phrase, she gains entry, encountering attendants who request her appellation. Assuming an alias, Flynn engages in a series of maneuvers to evaluate the game's mechanics before adjourning to the garden, where the Research Institute, RI, is hosting an event. Directed by the voice, Flynn charms Marielle, persuading her to escort the avatar home. As Flynn converses with Marielle, the latter suspends the game for privacy, succumbing to Flynn's allure. Departing in Marielle's vehicle, their intimacy abruptly disrupted as the voice commands Flynn to procure and administer a vial concealed on Marielle's person. Following compliance, Marielle collapses, triggering an assault by the automaton chauffeur. The altercation escalates as the robot resorts to kicks and punches, before brandishing a knife. Flynn retaliates, landing several blows on the assailant before seizing control of the vehicle's brakes and simultaneously dispatching the driver with the knife. Directed by the enigmatic voice, Flynn maneuvers the car into a secluded alley, prompting the wall to part ways upon uttering the designated phrase, revealing Aelita, the orchestrator behind the voice. Following a brief exchange laden with cryptic remarks, Aelita declares a cessation, announcing a continuation of their interaction on the following day. Upon disconnecting from the game, Burton apprises Flynn of the company's favorable regard for her, accompanied by an offer of increased remuneration. Flynn acquiesces to return the subsequent day, albeit experiencing a momentary bout of dizziness upon rising. Subsequently, she embarks on a quest to procure medication for her mother from illicit dealers at a local bar. Met with insufficient funds, she faces insinuations of exchanging favors for the needed medication until Connor intervenes, leveraging his disability to compel the dealers into compliance. Accompanied by Connor, Flynn secures the medicine and departs, leaving the dealers to their devices. Meanwhile, their superior, Corbell, reprimands them for their timidity, administering punishment with brutal force. In due course, Flynn re-engages with the game, finding her avatar awakening within a surgical theater, rendered immobile. Aelita asserts control, informing Flynn of her confinement within the simulation and overseeing the avatar's ocular extraction, intended for replacement with Marielle's. Despite enduring excruciating pain, Flynn is coached through the ordeal until succumbing to unconsciousness. Upon regaining consciousness, Flynn finds herself in a vehicle alongside Aelita, journeying to an opulent edifice where Marielle's eye grants them access. Ascending through a series of enigmatic chambers, they encounter a peculiar space housing a suspended inverted pyramid. Compelled by Aelita, Flynn undergoes a harrowing ordeal as her own eye is affixed to the pyramid, subjected to a laser's relentless scrutiny under Aelita's coercion. Abruptly, Daniel materializes, prompting Aelita to urge Flynn to thwart his menacing intent. Despite her efforts, Daniel swiftly subdues Flynn, binding her as he employs a gun emitting sonic pulses to incapacitate Aelita. As Daniel subjects Aelita to coercion for information, Flynn, in a desperate bid, manages to free a hand, only to be confronted with the revelation of a robotic facade beneath her skin. Seizing the opportunity, Flynn commands her avatar to engage Daniel, affording Aelita an opportunity to flee. Focused on Flynn, Daniel delivers a fatal blow to the avatar, jolting Flynn back to consciousness in the tangible realm, repulsed by the experience. Elsewhere, a vigilant policeman observes two suspicious vehicles, only for them to vanish into thin air. Investigating further, he is confronted by an armed assailant, coercing him into a perilous position before an unseen vehicle strikes him down, unveiling the advanced cloaking capabilities of the cars. The subsequent day unfolds with ominous overtones as Flynn receives a foreboding call from Wilf, urging her to heed the looming peril and re-engage with the game. However, Flynn rebuffs his entreaty, consumed by fear. Nightfall descends, accompanied by flickering lights and Wilf's haunting voice echoing through the shop's machinery, divulging the looming threat of a $9 million bounty on her life. Terrified, Flynn seeks refuge with Burton, ultimately mobilizing a concerted effort to thwart the impending danger. With Burton's friends orchestrating a diversion, the group strategizes, leveraging their technological prowess to counter the assailants. As the confrontation escalates into a fierce firefight, their ammunition wanes until Connor intervenes, turning the tide in their favor. With the adversaries vanquished, the group concedes to Flynn's imperative to utilize the headset once more for reconnaissance. Reconnecting with the virtual realm, Flynn assumes a doppelganger avatar, greeted by Wilf, who reveals the headset's true nature as a conduit for her consciousness into a robotic peripheral in 2099. Stepping outside, she confronts a dystopian landscape adorned with colossal statues, bereft of human presence. Wilf unveils a dire ultimatum, aiding in Aelita's pursuit in exchange for her mother's salvation. Flynn is faced with a grave decision, embarking on a journey that intertwines the virtual and tangible realms in a quest for redemption and survival. Upon reconnection to the present, Flynn, though feeling disoriented, hastens into town to retrieve the medication left by Wilf, administering it to Ella upon her return. Concurrently, Burton's friends discreetly dispose of the deceased bodies. Subsequently, Flynn re-engages with the virtual realm, awakening in a house in Notting Hill, where Wilf introduces her to his superior, Lev, and his team of technicians. Flynn is apprised of the repercussions of temporal interaction, wherein each contact with the past spawns a divergent timeline known as a stub, crucially dependent on the point of separation. Aelita's role in facilitating this connection to the stub underscores the urgency of her retrieval. Perturbed by the medication's efficacy rate, Flynn demands reciprocal assistance for her family's plight before committing to the search for Aelita. Meanwhile, Officer Tommy stumbles upon an anomalous phenomenon, a floating cup of coffee, which leads to the discovery of a cloaked vehicle. Investigating further, he uncovers a crucial piece of evidence, enlisting Burton's expertise for analysis. Flynn returns with news of an impending windfall orchestrated by future entities through her cousin Leon's lottery victory. In the future, Charisse commissions a robot resembling Daniel to glean vital intelligence. Flynn's attempts to uncover information about Milagros Cold Iron and Wilf yield no results, compounded by an inexplicable physical impediment. Meanwhile, Corbell, ensnared in a virtual dalliance, is propositioned by Daniel with a lucrative offer to eliminate Flynn and Burton. Subsequent events escalate as Corbell succumbs to the allure of newfound wealth, consenting to the nefarious scheme. Flynn, meanwhile, witnesses Burton's entrepreneurial ambition as he utilizes the lottery winnings to acquire the shop. Venturing back into the future, Flynn divulges her encounter with Aelita to Lev's cohort, who reveal Muriel's affiliation with the Research Institute, RI, and Corbell's treachery, prompting Flynn's urgent return to the present to warn her brother. In parallel, Wilf grapples with personal reminiscences, culminating in a poignant reunion with his adopted mother and an eerie encounter with a robotic facsimile of Aelita. As revelations unfold, the enigma surrounding Aelita's whereabouts deepens, shrouded in cryptic clues, hinting at her elusive sanctuary. In the present, Burton confronts Corbell, laying bare his awareness of Corbell's nefarious agenda. He presents two options: a lucrative financial arrangement or confrontation with Burton's formidable comrades, former Marines unified by their military implants. Initially unfazed, Corbell's confidence wanes as Burton demonstrates the lethal potential of their collective prowess, shattering a glass with a mere gesture. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Corbell begrudgingly accepts the monetary offer, unaware of Officer Tommy's observance nearby. Meanwhile, in the virtual realm, Flynn embarks on another journey with Wilf, navigating the vicinity of Buckingham Palace in an attempt to retrace her previous steps. Through a synchronized sensory link facilitated by Wilf, Flynn gains access to his experiences, including his hangover. Their excursion is interrupted by a police robot, prompting Wilf to fabricate a plausible explanation to deter suspicion, albeit temporarily. In another narrative thread, Daniel's superior, Charisse, orchestrates a cruel punishment for a company researcher, Grace, utilizing hornets to induce distress. Grace's betrayal regarding the Stubb Research Department incurs Charisse's wrath, revealing the ruthless undercurrents within the RI. Subsequently, Flynn and Wilf delve deeper into the enigma surrounding Aelita, deciphering clues leading to her apartment. Unveiling a hidden chamber within, they encounter remnants of Flynn's past ordeal, including broken robots and a miniature replica of her home. The discovery culminates in a chilling realization of Alita's meticulous surveillance and manipulation, casting a shadow of paranoia over their quest for answers. After extracting a sample from the robots, Wilf discovers Alita's implant in a box, which she had removed to evade tracking. As they prepare to depart, the main door is violently forced open. Soon, Daniel and a robot assail them, with Daniel's sonic gun seemingly affecting Flynn's physical body as well. Utilizing a fallen scalpel, Wilf strikes the robot, incapacitating it momentarily and creating a window for Flynn to disarm Daniel. Unaware that Charisse is observing through the robot's eyes, Flynn interrogates Daniel at gunpoint. He reveals Charisse's pursuit of her due to her acquisition of something significant. Before he can disclose more, Charisse commands the robot to eliminate Daniel. In retaliation, Flynn destroys the robot with gunfire. A flashback transports us to 2075, where London lies in ruins and Wilf and Alita are homeless children surviving on the streets. When they encounter a van distributing food, Wilf investigates despite Alita's warnings. Upon closer inspection, the van's illusion unravels, revealing a trap orchestrated by individuals in yellow suits and masks who swiftly capture them both. In 2099, Wilf presents the samples and the implant to Lev, who emphasizes Alita's dependence on the implant for survival. Returning to her own time, Flynn notices blood in her eye, followed by a sudden spasm in her right hand. Later, as tensions rise between Flynn and Burton regarding their approach to the situation, Flynn experiences increasing agitation, culminating in a bruise over her left eye and a seizure. Rushed to a doctor, she is diagnosed with a tonic-clonic seizure, but no lasting effects are apparent. The doctor advises against further headset use and recommends additional scans. Upon returning home, Burton expresses his intention to log in and assert control over their adversaries to ensure Flynn's safety. Connor expresses interest in the prospect of controlling a body. Wilf and Lev find themselves confronted by Charisse at Lev's residence, where she accuses him of theft. Despite Lev's feigned ignorance, Charisse delivers a chilling reminder of the delicate balance between the three major forces in their society: the kleptoligarchy, the Met Police, and the Research Institute. She warns Lev against overstepping his bounds, citing dire consequences for those who dare to challenge the established order. After Charisse departs, Lev discovers his missing teacup, a subtle reminder of her power and influence. Simultaneously, Connor attempts to commandeer the Flynn robot, initiating an escape attempt by leaping through a window, only to be swiftly thwarted by a vigilant technician. Meanwhile, Flynn, engrossed in childhood memories, is interrupted by Wilf, who informs her of Connor's actions. Upon researching Lev's background, Flynn uncovers a disturbing connection to mafia-related violence, but Wilf dismisses any correlation. In a revelation-filled exchange, Lev divulges his sinister intentions, admitting to orchestrating the demise of his alternate selves and their families to safeguard his power and ambitions. Despite Flynn's escalating physical distress, she resolves to venture into the future once more. Despite resistance from the technicians, Flynn's determination prevails, as Burton's friends intervene to secure her continued connection. Subsequently, Flynn and Wilf convene at a cemetery, where enigmatic objects hover above certain graves, each representing a phase of the cataclysmic event known as the jackpot. As Wilf elucidates the grim details of each phase, Flynn's psyche reels from the harrowing revelations, prompting a desperate plea to end the visual onslaught and return to the present. A flashback elucidates Alita's manipulation of Grace, leveraging their past relationship to coerce her into sharing research. Grace leads Alita to the God Font, revealing a labyrinthine network of stubs utilized for various experiments, including the insidious behavioral mod department. Here, implants were developed to manipulate soldiers' empathy, resulting in horrific acts of violence. Alita recoils at the callous disregard for ethical boundaries, contrasting sharply with Grace's indifferent demeanor. Their exit is observed by Marielle, casting a shadow of suspicion over their actions. In the present, Robert, a former assassin, grapples with the challenge of maintaining a semblance of normalcy under a new identity. His routine is disrupted when he receives an enigmatic package containing a phone and a formidable sonic gun. Testing the weapon's capabilities, he is both impressed and unsettled by its power. His contemplation is abruptly halted by a call from the Daniel robot, offering a substantial sum to eliminate Flynn's family. Despite his initial hesitance, Robert is compelled to accept, when Daniel threatens his daughter's safety. Subsequently, at a local bowling alley, Robert confronts an old acquaintance whom he suspects of divulging his identity to Daniel. Unmoved by explanations of coercion, Robert's rage boils over, resulting in a violent confrontation that leaves his acquaintance and his sons dead. Armed with new information, Robert sets out to locate Flynn, only to be ambushed by a vengeful survivor seeking retribution. In a harrowing struggle, Robert employs the sonic gun to fend off his attacker, resorting to vehicular force to neutralize the threat. Meanwhile, Flynn undergoes further medical examinations, revealing a bacterial infection affecting her visual cortex. As the doctor conducts additional tests, extracting cerebrospinal fluid for analysis, Robert lies in wait outside the clinic, feigning vehicle trouble. Encountering Flynn's friend Billy, who insists on assistance despite Robert's objections, their encounter is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Flynn and Burton. Recognizing the sonic gun in Robert's possession, Flynn swiftly intervenes to prevent harm, narrowly averting disaster. In the ensuing chaos, a tense confrontation ensues, culminating in a perilous car crash. As Robert advances with lethal intent, Burton retaliates while Flynn manipulates the car to thwart his approach. Ultimately, it is Billy who subdues Robert, thwarting his lethal intentions and bringing a temporary respite to the escalating conflict. As Officer Tommy arrives to apprehend Robert, Flynn chooses to conceal her knowledge, opting to feign ignorance as Robert is taken into custody. En route to the police precinct, Robert divulges the details of the lucrative deal he was offered to Officer Tommy, emphasizing the imminent danger posed by those who seek to eliminate him as a loose end. Tempting Tommy with the offer of money in exchange for his freedom, Robert's proposition is interrupted by a sudden, unseen force that causes the car to flip over. A nearby vehicle materializes, and Robert is swiftly whisked away by its driver, leaving Tommy bewildered and alone. Later, Flynn ventures into the Research Institute, RI, to confront Charisse about the accusations against her. Despite vehemently denying any wrongdoing, Flynn finds herself engaged in a fierce altercation when Charisse attacks her with surprising strength. Despite the formidable challenge, Flynn manages to overpower Charisse and leaves her incapacitated before departing. Meanwhile, a haunting flashback revisits Burton and his team in the Texas outback, where a moral quandary unfolds upon encountering a distressed dog trapped in a wired fence. Despite reservations about potential dangers, Connor's compassionate instinct compels him to intervene, leading to a tragic explosion that haunts him in the present. As Tommy attempts to investigate the accident further, he encounters obstacles when digital files are mysteriously blocked. Encouraged to take paid leave by the sheriff, Tommy becomes suspicious upon discovering incriminating evidence implicating the sheriff's involvement. In the future, Wilf and Flynn navigate a bustling street, prompting Flynn's curiosity about the aloof behavior of the populace. Wilf reveals that it's merely a visual illusion crafted by the RI to mask the city's grim reality. As Flynn mimics Wilf's instructions, her gestures cause the disappearance of all the people around her. Emboldened, she extends the same action to the surrounding landscape, causing entire buildings to vanish, leaving behind a desolate scene of destruction. Following this display of power, Wilf and Flynn venture to meet the fabricators responsible for Alita's robots. Employing information gleaned from samples collected previously, they gain entry to a butcher shop and utter the designated code word. However, the butchers initially refuse to offer their services. Thinking quickly, Flynn fabricates a tale about a bet with her body's creator, sparking the butcher's competitive spirit. Upon inspecting Flynn's robot, he confidently asserts his ability to enhance it, proposing retractable titanium nails. Curious about replacing a robot eye with a human one, Flynn's inquiry triggers a violent response from the butchers. Despite being outnumbered, Flynn effortlessly subdues them with her advanced body. During the altercation, Wilf queries the butchers about Alita, learning of her association with a group of revolutionaries known as the Neoprims. Wilf is taken aback by this revelation, realizing his sister's secrecy. Meanwhile, Lev's technicians work to construct robots for Connor and Burton, facilitating their journey to the future. In the present, Corbell and his wife prepare dinner while Robert remains unconscious across the table. Upon awakening, Robert discovers a metal collar fastened around his neck. His attempt to attack Corbell is swiftly thwarted by the wife's use of a remote to administer an electric shock. Later, Leon offers to share Connor's nightmares through their implanted connection, providing some respite for Connor. Despite the intense pain induced by the shared experience, Connor finds solace in peaceful sleep. In the future, Lev's technicians uncover the doctor's research into the bacteria found within Flynn's body. Their investigation is interrupted by the arrival of Inspector Ainsley, prompting Lev to extend hospitality despite communication challenges caused by the malfunctioning phones. Ainsley elucidates that she possesses the authority to apprehend Wilf for his presence at Daniel's murder scene and potentially execute him within the forthcoming 7 minutes. Alternatively, she proposes they opt for cooperation and respond to her inquiries. Transitioning back to the present, the sheriff presents Corbell with footage retrieved from Tommy's vehicle. Meanwhile, within Corbell's residence, Robert clandestinely purloins a substantial paperweight, while the attention of the wife is diverted elsewhere. Subsequently, he feigns interest in Corbell's aquarium and moves closer under the pretext of examining it, brandishing the paperweight to shatter the tank. The ensuing deluge inundates the room, causing the wife to stumble and fall. Enraged, she employs a remote control to administer an electric shock, yet Robert seizes her leg, enabling the water to conduct the electricity, rendering them both unconscious simultaneously. After a brief interval, Robert regains consciousness. Later on, Connor and the siblings receive a communication from the future urging them to log in. Upon awakening, they discover Ainsley awaiting their presence. Lev has apprised her of their temporal connection, prompting her to escort them to the station for examination. Subsequently, they arrive at a metropolitan police training facility named the Zoo. With a mere gesture from Ainsley, the detritus before them metamorphoses into a towering edifice, and she dispatches Burton and Connor inside to evaluate their new capabilities. Ainsley's assistant, Beatrice, outlines the protocol. They must ascend from one floor to the next, surmounting obstacles until they reach the rooftop, where a surprise awaits. The illumination dims, and 6 robotic sentinels materialize around them. Employing teamwork reminiscent of bygone days, the group swiftly incapacitates the guards while Beatrice scrutinizes their performance data. Upon completion, she announces that subsequent floors will present escalating challenges. Nevertheless, the group proceeds unhindered, dispatching any adversaries that impede their progress. Upon reaching the rooftop, Beatrice declares that only one of them will emerge victorious from the impending clash. Burton and Connor launch their assault promptly, yet their coordinated efforts prove futile against Beatrice's prowess, as she swiftly outmaneuvers them, compelling their disconnection with minimal effort. Elsewhere, Ainsley discloses her findings to Flynn regarding her family's alternate timeline, divulging that the local iteration of Connor remains unscathed, devoid of the limb loss suffered in their reality, and none among their group possess the implants, leading to Burton's demise during the conflict. These revelations indicate the remote involvement's initiation of the stub at least a decade earlier than anticipated. Flynn's timeline experiences an accelerated manifestation of the jackpot, prompting suspicion towards the remote involvement. Upon concluding their exchange, Ainsley severs her connection with Flynn. In the present, Tommy revisits the station, seeking the evidence retrieved from the accident. However, the inventory solely lists his demolished vehicle, arousing suspicion. Investigating further, Tommy locates his car in a salvage yard, discovering additional evidence within, including the sonic gun. Accidentally activating the weapon, he shatters nearby windows. Subsequently, Tommy receives a summons from the sheriff to Corbell's residence. Upon arrival, he traces bloodied footprints to discover the deceased wife and the sheriff conversing with Corbell. Though aware of Robert's culpability, the sheriff pressures Tommy to apprehend Burton and his accomplices as the perpetrators. Tommy rebuffs the directive, prompting the sheriff to warn him of the pervasive corruption within the force, coercing compliance under threat of dismissal or arrest. Contemplating his next move, Tommy retrieves the firearms and confronts the sheriff, ultimately resorting to lethal force against him before incapacitating Corbell with the sonic gun. Meanwhile, Ella experiences a sudden loss of vision and solicits assistance, prompting Reese, Burton's associate, to escort her to a medical facility. Unbeknownst to them, Robert surveils their movements, trailing them to the clinic. Upon their arrival, Robert confronts Reese, wounding him gravely in a violent altercation. Despite Reese's resilience, Robert prevails, ultimately ending his life. Threatening the doctor and Ella with a firearm, Robert coerces their compliance, holding them captive. Utilizing Reese's phone, Robert sends a distress message, luring Connor and the siblings back to the present with the false pretense of Ella's whereabouts at the clinic. Burton, Flynn and Leon hastily embark on their journey to the clinic, yet en route, they grow suspicious of the messages, noting unfamiliar language patterns inconsistent with Reese's speech. Leon attempts to establish a connection with Reese via their implants, but to no avail, indicating foul play. As they approach the clinic, Leon manages to interface with Reese's body, eliciting a response. Seizing the opportunity, they observe Robert's movements through thermal binoculars, prompting Burton to swiftly neutralize the threat. Upon entry, they swiftly intervene to rescue the women, ensuring Robert's incapacitation for good measure. Meanwhile, in the future, Lev's technicians deliberate on extracting the bacteria from Flynn's brain for their own nefarious ends. Lev confronts them, coercing disclosure of their plans under threat of dire consequences. They unveil Elita's scheme to conceal stolen RI files within Burton's implants, transformed into brain-colonizing bacteria due to Flynn's inadvertent involvement. The technicians intend to furnish the data to the neoprims for world-altering purposes. Lev issues a stern warning, emphasizing loyalty under penalty of severe reprisal. Subsequently, Flynn, Burton, and Connor are propositioned by Ainsley, offering resources to avert the jackpot in exchange for their allegiance. Flynn seeks a cure for her ailing mother, only to be confronted with the grim reality of Ella's impending demise. Distraught, the siblings opt to disconnect, seeking solace in each other's embrace. Meanwhile, Charisse learns of the RI's data residing within Flynn's mind and resolves to thwart Lev's machinations. Vowing to hasten the jackpot in Flynn's timeline, she sets a plan in motion to eliminate her and her family. Later, Flynn rendezvous with Wilf in virtual space, their connection fraught with caution due to potential surveillance. As they express their feelings, a profound realization dawns upon them: their love for each other. As they venture to Wilf and Elita's childhood hiding spot, Flynn and company remain oblivious to the technician's surveillance. Upon arrival, they dispel the additional personas and encounter a youthful Elita android. Advising Flynn to depart, the robot warns of its susceptibility to manipulation by others, severing the technician's connection upon Flynn's disconnection. Subsequently, the genuine Elita arrives, elucidating the purpose of the immunity implant embedded in citizens' minds, designed to suppress memories. Elita's removal of hers unveils the truth: the oligarchy's ruthless eradication of 5 million lives in a fortnight, including Wilf's and Elita's kin, driven by the paranoia of contagion. With the emergence of survivors, Elita unveils her vision for the neoprims, requiring the data residing within Flynn's consciousness to materialize their objectives. In the present, Tommy alerts Flynn to a Homeland Security warning regarding an imminent attack on a nearby missile silo, indicative of the jackpot's onset. Flynn confronts a technician, coercing a confession and resolving to thwart the impending catastrophe. Enlisting Connor's aid, Flynn orchestrates a plan to initiate a reboot by creating a new stub, intending to self-delete to thwart the enemy's agenda. Ainsley, unable to open a new stub, imparts the knowledge of accessing ancillary RI sites to Flynn. Arriving at the designated site, Flynn encounters resistance from a guard, swiftly overpowering him to access the facility. Engaging in a brief skirmish with additional guards, Flynn emerges victorious, utilizing the room's furnishings to her advantage. Activating the stub portal with a retrieved pocket watch, Flynn ensures its destruction, defying Charisse's pursuit. Returning to consciousness in the present, Flynn retreats to the creek for contemplation. Connor, concealed nearby, executes a sniper shot upon Flynn's countdown, initiating her transfer into the future within her robot form. Ainsley beckons them to commence their work, signaling the onset of their endeavors. That's how the first season of the series ends.